Hey guys, welcome to episode 15 of the Midwest Angler Podcast. I'm Matt Deitch, always with Scott Sturman over here. Tonight we're joined by special guest Troy Diede. Welcome to the show, Troy.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me, guys.
You bet.
Glad to have you here. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, Troy.
Well, where do I start? 34. Grew up in Yankton, South Dakota. Pretty much down on the Missouri River, about an hour and 15 minutes from Sioux Falls, if you're not familiar with where that's at. Graduated high school there, went to Mitchell Votech, did a couple years at the electrical program there. Now I work at Raven Industries as an engineering technician, and trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. So,
Same way with us. Yeah. We're still trying to figure that out too. The cool thing, kind of why we wanted to ask you onto the show tonight or today, you're a big bass fisherman. Tomorrow, this is, what is it, March 14th today?
Yes, sir.
It's the 15th tomorrow, and the Bassmaster Classic starts tomorrow, and you had the privilege of fishing in it in 2015 down in Lake Hartwell in South Carolina.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How was that? I bet you that wasn't a fun experience at all.
A little intimidating. It's kind of one of those things that the dream, I guess, of a tournament, a bass tournament angler is to get to that level, to have that opportunity. And I was just blessed and fortunate to walk through the grassroots portion of the bass organization and have that opportunity. So pretty intimidating once you get there. A lot of questions, a lot of emotions run through your head. I can still remember 4 years ago what it felt like. The night before it all. The night before the tournament started and everything leading up to it, there's a lot going on, and it was pretty cool.
What was your path getting there? What you had to enter in some qualifiers. What was that?
Yep. So the way it kind of works on the bass side of things, the bass organization, is it all starts at the club level. So you belong to a local club. My local club here in Sioux Falls is called Sioux Bassmasters. We were chartered in, I believe, 1974. I think we were the first club in the state of South Dakota. A little history there for you. But belonged to a club, and then what I did was I joined what they call the Bass Nation. And so this allowed you to go and fish a state tournament. So I went and fished a state tournament. Did really well there, qualified for a state team, and what they do when you qualify for a state team is they send a team of, when I went it was 16 guys, now it's 20, but they sent a team of 16 guys, and they took the top guy, they sent him to a regional event, they took the top guy out of that regional event and sent him on to a national event, okay, and then at nationals, you fish in a region. So I was fishing against the guys in the northern region, which were other states such as Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio, Iowa. Let's see what else. Michigan was in there. There's one or two other ones. There's like 8 states that I was in. So I needed to place on the top of those 8 states, and that's pretty much what I did to cash my spot at the Classic, I guess. I started at Lewis and Clark Lake. That was where the state tournament was. The regional event was at Lake Monroe, Indiana, and then the national event was at the Ouachita River down in Louisiana. And then, of course, like you said, Matt, the Classic was at Hartwell in South Carolina. So
kind of travel all over.
Yeah.
A lot of different. Did a lot of those places set up and fish the same, or every one you went to was kind of a total different?
Oh, it was totally different. Yeah, totally different. I mean, you went from, Springfield is like fishing in a marsh, right? I always describe it as a corn maze with cattails. I mean, it's all these little chutes. Some of the chutes are barely wide enough for your boat to fit through. A lot of flipping and pitching. It can be some moving baits, you know, spinner baits and crankbaits, but majority of the time it's flipping and pitching. When I went to Lake Monroe is a heavily pressured lake, and I swear there was probably only about 25 bass in the whole lake. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I was going for one bite a day at Lake Monroe. That was my goal. On day 1, I got 2 bites. On day 2, I got 2 bites. And on day 3, I got 2 bites. I capitalized on 5 of those 6 bites over the course of the 3 days, and I tied for second place at that regional event, but I bested the rest of the guys from South Dakota.
Yeah.
So I was able to move on to nationals. And nationals was the Ouachita River, which, I mean, you might as well just pour chocolate milk in a stream and go from there. But that was you know, alligators and snakes and spiders and, you know, flipping, pitching, buzzbait, you know, type of water. I mean, it was muddy, it was shallow, it was just a lot of really what we would call junk fishing. You know, you see a target, you go check it out.
Yeah.
And then the classic, of course, Hartwell. Hartwell is a herring lake, so deep water, clear. And the fish are very nomadic. When you have herring and the herring move, it's like you can put something together, and then if you have a weather pattern that moves in, you might want to just scrap your whole practice and just go fishing again. So,
yeah, that one. It seemed like a lot of deep. They were out fishing deep, weren't they? I mean,
Yep.
Ashley won that one, and he was fishing an underspin in like 40, like tree piles and 40, 50 feet of water. And was that a lot of spotted bass, or was that?
They
or
do
was it
have
mostly largemouth?
I believe it's mainly largemouth. There are spots in there, but typically the spots don't win the tournaments there.
Yeah.
You can come in with a mixed bag, you know, say 3 largemouth, 2 spots, but I don't know that, you know, I don't think it's quite up to the pace where you can come in with all spotted bass and win a tournament there. It's I know it's getting better. The pool above it is, I think it's Lake Kiwi, and that one has some magnum spots in it from what I've been told. So.
And you ran into some tournament day. It was cold. Didn't it?
Yeah.
It was like, wasn't there kind of like a little sheet of ice? Kind of that. There's a lot of boats freezing the trailers.
Yeah, we had Greenville had a 100-year record low. I mean, it was just this bogus ice storm that popped up, like 1.5 inches, 2 inches of ice, just coated everything, right? And the very first day of the Classic, driving my truck down the ramp, and I look on my little gauge on the truck, and it says 9 degrees, and I'm going, what in the world, you know? It's you know, it's the end of February, and I'm all the way down in South Carolina. You know, I drove all the way from South Dakota, and I'm thinking,
might have got colder.
Yeah, that's probably better. You know, it's probably warmer back home. But yeah, we got pulled up to the boat ramp, and the college guys, they always pitch in and help. They need a lot. It takes a lot of hands and feet to put on an event like that. So they came up to me before we got the boat pulled up the ramp to back down. They said, when you back down, just stop on the ramp for a little bit, and we're going to shake your boat. I said, you're going to what? You're going to shake my boat? What are you going to do that for? He's like, all the boats are froze on the trailers. The very first boat that got down there, it was Steve Lund. He's from Arizona, and it took him 40 minutes to get his boat off the trailer because the fiberglass was froze solid to the bunks.
Wow.
So it was pretty. I've never had that before. The other challenge I had was I didn't. You take your drain plug out at the end of the day, right? Yeah. You let all the water run out of the bottom of your boat. And that morning I went to go put my drain plug in, and it was all froze up. As soon as that water ran to the back, you know, you're in 42 to 44 degree water. You pull out on the one day, and then all that water, you know, just drips out slowly. My plug was completely froze, and so I was laying down in the parking lot, and Todd Faircloth comes by, and he goes, your boat plug is froze, isn't it? And I said, yep, what do you think I should do? He goes, I've seen this before. Hang on, I'll get you something. And he goes to his pickup, comes back out with a can of, what's that spray you put on your window, ice melt or whatever. You get comes in a little aerosol can.
Yep.
I used the whole can on that thing, and I got it thawed out and got the plug in there. But I was like, well, never had to do that one yet, and I'm from South Dakota, so I'm still learning.
As far as the Classic goes, people that maybe they don't know what the Classic is, it's the biggest fishing event in the bass organization. It's basically their Super Bowl. You could say their Daytona 500, their World Series. So it's kind of cool to, like you said, that you'd be able to make it, and the intimidation factor has probably got to be up there. It's like, if you really think about it, probably like if you're in a sports-related thing, sitting in the locker room with Tom Brady before the Super Bowl. You got Kevin Van Dam over there, and you got some of these heavy hitters that you're talking about. A person probably can get pretty starstruck while you're sitting there.
Yep.
But you got to get out there and get fishing, though, too. I mean, once you get out onto the water, it all that stuff kind of go away, or still.
That was very challenging for me. It's super intimidating. You're sitting next to a bunch of guys you watched on TV, probably, since I was probably like 11 years old, maybe even younger. So that part of it was pretty intimidating. Once I got out on the water, though, I think once I launched and got away from the whole crowd and everybody around snapping pictures and all that stuff, I think it just kind of like, all right, pressure's off a little bit, but you still have the pressure of, all right, I got to put 5 fish in the boat. How am I going to go about this? And not knowing what this weather, so they give you a break in between your official practice days and then when the Classic actually starts, and that's when that cold front hit.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm trying to think, all right, what are these fish? What are they going to be doing? And so I go to this spot where I had pre-fished, and I had a spot on the lower end of Hartwell, and I thought, all right, I knew the cold front was moving in, so I was pre-fishing for a deep water pattern, and I knew that's what I had to do. The unfortunate part was my definition of deep was not what the fish's definition of deep was. They were another 10 foot deeper, and I was fishing in anywhere from about 16 to 24, and they were in about 26 to 40. So, but yeah, no, the emotions do. That's probably 75% of the game is keeping at it, not giving up, and not letting that get in your head, and because that's really easy to do. And I think going back, there's a lot of things that a lot of the newness will be gone if I ever get that opportunity again. It'll be a little easier of a transition, I think, and I think I can focus a little more and actually just focus on the fish and not on Kevin Van Dam or Skeet Reese.
Yeah, those
Did you go down there by yourself?
I went down and pre-fished. My best friend Jason came down. He pre-fished with me. I think it was right before Christmas. So we went down, fished. I think we took 10 days. It's about a 22-hour drive.
Really?
We took about 10 days. Went down there and we just scoped the lake out. Identified some areas we thought might play in. Talked to as many local guys as we could, but you know how it is. You got different weather patterns and lake levels, and there's so many factors. You can't just say, all right, go to the spot, hammer them. February 20th, you're just gonna crush them right here.
If
it was that easy, everybody would be at that spot.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
So, but like during the actual Classic, I mean, you go back to your motel room at night. Did you have a buddy along like that you could sit and talk to, or were you by yourself, or how?
Yeah. So I had my wife came down with me.
Okay.
And so she didn't come down there right away. It was I think it was like the Monday or Tuesday she rolled it in town, and she had to drive through that same winter system that hit us, and coming through the Smoky Mountains there, kind of going across the eastern part of the states. She she drove through that and she actually rode down with my parents. And so she was with me for the whole event. My parents were there for the event, and had the kids too. The kids came along. They were pretty young. I don't know if they remember too much, but
yeah, well, that's still cool.
Yeah, still good experience for them, I'm sure.
How did you get into bass? You know, being from South Dakota, the land of walleyes, why bass fishing? Why?
Yeah, that's a great question. I often wonder that too. You know, it's like, how in the world did this take off? You know, well, so to kind of set things up, I started fishing. My dad took me fishing when I was about 2 years old. He got me started, got me fired up. We just fished for whatever. We really didn't, you know, we pan fish. We grew up on the river, and down by Yankton, there's a lake called Lake Yankton. It's just a little pothole lake right between the lower portion of the dam and then Lewis and Clark Lake, and so it's got some little springs that flow into it. Pretty shallow lakes, heavily vegetated, so panfish and bass haven, right? And so I just kind of grew up fishing that lake, fishing the river. I really didn't get into the bass until I was probably about 16, and I was like, oh, this is cool, because I started figuring out you can catch them on topwater.
Oh yeah.
And that's what kind of got me fired up. Get them on a topwater bite, and it's like, whoa, that's really cool, you know. And then you find out, well, you try and throw a topwater in October, and why isn't that working? You know, it worked 2 months ago. What in the world? So you start learning these things. You know, you learn windows of time when you know you can fish different things. And then the tournament thing didn't come in till I was about 20. I was about 22 when I joined a local club here in Sioux Falls, and I really started, just focusing on bass, and had a local guy that took me under his wing, and really he just poured into me, you know, pretty much everything he knows.
Yep.
And you know, it just kind of went from there.
Now you're gonna try to make the classic again, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the dream, you know, is just to get to that level again, and really, you know, not just stop there, but get at the elites. You know, that's really the next step. That's what I want to do full time. You know, the Bass organization has a great setup for grassroots anglers. It's just the average weekend warrior guy has an opportunity to advance and keep growing in the sport. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do it on 2 different levels. I'm still trying to do it on the state level. So I'm competing, just like I made it the first time, I'm still competing in the state tournaments and trying to make that regional event, then the national event, and then the classic. But I'm also jumping into the Opens this year. So I should just say just one Open to get my feet wet a little bit. And then hopefully in 2020, got a lot of things to work out, but hopefully in 2020 I can fish the full circuit in the Opens.
And Matt said that's in La Crosse, Wisconsin this year.
Yep.
The Mississippi River. You got the frog rod all ready to go.
I got a frog rod. I don't know if Kermit's ready, but I got a frog rod.
It seems like that's what a lot of the tournament fishing over there usually is.
Yeah.
So, like you said, next year are you gonna try to do the Northern Opens then, or all the Opens?
So I probably just one, probably just
circuits?
one section of it. So they are kind of restructuring. They might be going back to how it was. It would be 3 years ago, where they had like six different regions. So the northern region was stretched pretty much from probably about Wisconsin over to kind of New York and that area, And then there was obviously southern, eastern, western. I think they had there was 2 over on the east side that were kind of in the middle, kind of that middle section.
Yeah.
All these hot bass lakes, tons of anglers all over, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, all them states. There's Mid-Atlantic, I think, was the division, and there was one other one over there. But so it used to be broke up like that. Right now, they have it broke up as eastern and central.
Oh, okay.
And that's pretty much it. Yeah. So the one I'm fishing this year is considered a central, and next year it may change, but that's kind of in the works. It's kind of up in the air, and they're trying to look at some additional opportunities for the grassroots portion of bass.
So obviously you got a wife that's pretty understanding.
That's an understatement.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are days where she is at her wit's end, but I tell you what, she is an absolute sweetheart. My biggest fan, biggest supporter. She has seen me at my lowest of lows, and she's seen me at my highest of highs, and she loves me through it all. And so to have that, I mean, I'm blessed beyond more than I deserve. So. Yeah, that's another statement.
Yeah, you got to have that support group. That's what it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got my 2 little girls. They are a huge support, and I have my extended family. They chip in, and obviously there's a lot of time where I'm gone on the road for sometimes 10 days at a time. Before I'm back, and friends. We have a lot of friends that are willing to pitch in and help out, because it definitely takes a village to raise kids. So,
yeah. Well, and I don't think a lot of people realize that don't tournament fish, or especially at that level, those top levels and stuff like that, in the supporting parts of it, is the time it does take. It's not like you can just go there and, oh, okay, the fishing tournament is this, these 3 days. Well, I'll get there the day before, and then the first time you're on the water is the morning of the first day. If you want to be competitive, it's not going to happen that way. I mean, it takes a lot of practice. It takes, going down there and, time on the water. It's just crazy.
Yeah, nothing can replace time on the water. I mean, there's really, you can do things to help you aid, and once you get there, you have an idea of what to expect, but nothing can replace that time on the water. That is extremely valuable, and you have to be in tune with what's going on, and every little thing, you just pick up. All right, you figure out this pattern. You got to put together a couple, 2-3 patterns, and then all right, well, then you start thinking weather situations coming up, right?
Yep.
So you put together this pattern. All right, well, this pattern works. So let's see, if we can get another one. And then you start falling back. Okay, if the weather drops, if we get some, cold conditions, all right, the fish might slide back a little bit. So you got to be prepared, and you got to have stuff in all different areas. You can't just say, all right, it's gonna be a shallow game. I'm gonna throw a buzz bait for 3 days straight, and I'm going to crush it, And one of those days you might have bright bluebird skies, or it might be windy, right? Buzz bait, you can't throw a buzz bait when it's windy,
Yeah, you got to be able to adapt, yeah.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
At that qualifier, going into the last day, you had to know that you had a chance, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I was back 8 ounces. And so kind of the way it works, they do a really good job of building the suspense, right? So they're holding people, they're holding people in the back, and they're bringing them in, strategically to keep the crowd in tune with what's going on. So I'm sitting in the boatyard, and I'm parked right next to J.J. Patton. He was the qualifier from Iowa. And coolest guy ever. He's a doctor down there, and so we're sitting there, and he comes up to me and he goes, "How'd you do?" And I said, "Well, I got 3." And he's like, "No, I got 2." I was like, "Uh-oh, this is not gonna be good." It's gonna be close, because I had one fish that was like 2 pounds, and then I had 2 squeakers that barely made 12 inches, right? And so if he had two, you know, a 2 1/4 and a 2 1/2, it was out. You know, I was gone. I was out. And so we were sitting there. Neither of us knew either, right? And so yeah, they take us up on. They take me up on stage, weigh my fish, and they're like, "All right, you're leading. You know, you're leading for your division. You know." And then they put you in what they call the hot seat. So you're in there and you're waiting and waiting and waiting. It's like, are they ever going to bring out this last guy to weigh so I can figure out what's going on here? And so they bring him up and puts it on the scales. I didn't even want to watch. I was just like, emotions were running high.
I bet.
So, yeah.
I'd say, yeah.
So how many ounces did you win by?
Oh gosh, what was it? I think it was close to 1 pound.
Really?
I think it was close to 1 pound. Yeah.
So you just run up on stage and just kind of.
I was just struck. I was like, because I thought I had completely just flopped. Right. That third day of nationals, I had one fish up until I think it was a half hour or 45 minutes before weighing. I had one fish, and I'm just thinking over in my head, oh, what is going on, and I'm just grinding, I'm searching, I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and I was like, all right, I just need to stay focused. And I said a little quick prayer, kind of give myself a little time out. All right, let's regroup, and just this thing came to me. I was like, you just have some faith, just keep going, have some faith, keep going. And I just kept grinding it out, kept making casts, and I kept my head down and I just kept going. And all of a sudden, within the last 10 minutes, I was only about 4 miles from the boat ramp. In the last 10 minutes, I hook into one, and I'm reeling him in, and he comes up next to the boat, jumps, and gets off. And I'm going, that was it,
Yeah.
And so just like, I was already kind of down, and then I have this thing happen, it's kind of a heartbreaker. So I'm like, oh, no. So I was like, all right, forget about that, let's keep going. So make another cast. On the very next cast, I catch one, a squeaker, just big enough to get put in. And then the last fish I catch was like 1.75 pounds, 2 pounds, and I catch that. I'm like, I got to go, and fire up the motor, and away I go. And that's where the waiting game came in. So
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean,
That's like hitting the shot at the buzzer. It's like scoring, kicking that field goal as
Yeah.
time expires. I mean, you just gotta keep grinding. Like you said, the
Yeah.
biggest thing is you could have got down on yourself and then
absolutely.
just been distraught and let it affect you the rest of the 10 minutes that you had left. But you ground out and got to go to the Classic.
I wanted to break my rod in half or something, Happy Gilmore, chuck it out in the water,
At that point, it's like, I'm giving up fishing. I'm done with it. Go back and just troll for walleyes now.
Yeah, every cast counts. Every cast counts.
Yep.
And man, it's like I said, it's so much of a mental sport.
Yeah, it really is.
There's so much more to it that so the average person just thinks, you just go out there and you put your lure in the water, and it just it's all about luck. Well, it's all about luck. You hear that all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, let's go out to the river.
Yeah.
I'll give you this rod, and I'll take this rod. There'll be the same rod and the same bait tied on. Everything's identical. All right, let's go.
Yep. Here we are at the ramp. Tell me where the fish are. All right, over there.
Do you do any other fishing besides bass fishing? Are you a walleye fisherman? Do you do ice fishing?
Yeah, so I do some ice fishing. Maybe about 6 times a year. I'm still kind of learning that sport. It's way different. And I'm kind of lazy too. So once I get my shack set up and I got the heater turned on, it's like, do I really want to move? And I'm impatient sometimes, but other times it's just like, I can't sit here any longer, right? So I do a little ice fishing. Trying to get into pan fishing a little bit in the fall. I've really actually enjoyed bluegill and crappie fishing in some of our lakes. We don't have real We don't have awesome lakes around the Sioux Falls area. You got to travel a little bit, but there are a couple lakes that they kind of come around every couple 3 years. So they get drained down, and the fishing is not really good for a couple of years, and then they kind of start slowly building back up, and a lot of that has to do with angler pressure.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Somebody goes there, doesn't catch them one night. Oh, there's no fish in there. It's like, yep, there's no fish in there. Just go somewhere else.
Yeah, I remember I have this lake about an hour drive from Sioux Falls, and it was about 4 years ago. We stumbled on some crappie, and they were all good crappie, like anywhere from like 11 to 14 inchers. So great eating fish. And so I was actually bass fishing. I think I was throwing a Ned rig. So it's just a little short bait, and all of a sudden I catch a crappie, and I'm like, wow, that's a nice, 12-inch crappie. And I throw them back, and I cast in the same spot, and I catch another one. I'm like, huh. And I throw them back, and I was like, oh, I'll make another cast and catch another one. I'm like, maybe I should be keeping some of these, So I put a few in the boat, took, a dozen or 15 of them home, and I trolled over in that area, and I have side scan on my boat, right? So I'm going over it with my side scan, and it's just loaded. This whole spot is just loaded, my graph is just completely lit up, right? It's like, whoa, there's a lot of fish here. So the next week I come back, I bring my two little girls and the wife, bring them, and we just had a heyday. We caught like 100-some crappie and bluegill. And I think we cleaned maybe 50 or something like that. And we did that for probably 2 or 3 years, and then it just kind of fizzled out and drained down, and it'll come back again, but it's going to take a while because a lot of people found out about it, and during ice fishing is when they really got crushed.
Oh yeah.
So, but it's fun to find lakes like that, and then use utilize some of the tools. Spend a ton of money on these graphs, and it's like, all right, well, let's utilize them to fill the freezer a little bit, and the kids have some fun. The wife has fun.
Yep.
So
now with the kids, getting them involved with fishing and stuff like that, how cool is it now? With all the high school bass fishing that's starting to come about, and all these leagues and teams and college fishing and everything.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of young anglers who don't understand what that opportunity is. It's an unbelievable opportunity. I mean, and especially up here in the Midwest, there's not a lot of competition. So jump in. You fish. You fish a youth tournament, and you can qualify and go fish a national youth tournament, and you can go and meet go fish a lake down south and get to meet tons of the pros, and it's a pretty unique opportunity that wasn't quite around when I was in high school yet.
Yeah.
So it's not really well known up around the Midwest, but it's definitely there.
I keep trying to see if I can go back for my master's and get onto a college fishing team or something. Get a scholarship.
Yeah, at the high school, some of these colleges are even going and they're recruiting anglers.
Yeah, some of them are starting to give scholarships out for it. I think now
they're going and recruiting anglers for their team.
Yeah,
and the scholarship opportunities are there, and just really neat. You would have never thought, all right, well, fishing. It's usually football or basketball or something, one of those, the scholarship opportunities are there, but fishing on all things, How cool.
I'll take it.
Yep.
I'll take it.
No,
go ahead.
With all your travels, obviously you fished a lot of different lakes. What's your favorite lake that you've ever fished?
Oh, man. That's a tough question. There's, I think we're pretty spoiled in South Dakota. Honestly, even though I've traveled, I've fished down in Florida, I fished in the Carolinas, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, obviously Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota. Out of all the waters, we're pretty doggone spoiled up in South Dakota. We really are. And I think a lot of it has to do with we're way the heck up here, in the middle of nowhere, really, but we also are a walleye dominant state. So a lot of guys are distracted, you know, what I would consider distracted from bass fishing, you know. So we have awesome walleye fisheries, and so the bass kind of get overlooked. And so I'd say Oahe is probably, you know, if I was gonna single one out, I would say Oahe would probably be my favorite. Now that it's kind of a double-edged sword there too sometimes, because it can come back to bite you. But it's when that wind blows, she bares her teeth. That's for sure.
Well, the elites found that out last year.
Yeah.
You know, there was some. I think there was a couple of them that didn't even. I don't know if they went out because of the wind. I don't know if that was a practice day or what up there. But did you go up to that and watch?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, I followed a few of the guys around and just kind of participated in the crowds and whatnot, and talked to a few guys that I've, you know, met over different tournaments, and the Classic, obviously met a few of the anglers there. So
I think that's the coolest thing about what the Elite Series. I went to the one out at the Mississippi River in La Crosse a few years ago, and just how approachable those guys are.
Yeah.
I mean, it was weird for me because, you know, being a big bass fan, and you know, it's like, oh, like all these guys, and it's like they pull up on their boat with their boat, and you could like walk down there on the dock and stand there and talk to them while they're loading up their fish, and then they come up there and they're waiting for a weigh-in bag, and you're going up there getting pictures with them, and they're just standing there talking to you. It was just like, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, so now with the Sioux, you said Sioux Bassmasters is what you're a member of?
Yep.
How does a person, you know, if we got anybody that's watching or listening, they want to, you know, it's something that kind of interests them, how would they go about getting involved with being in a club like that, a bass club?
Sure. There is, on the Bass website, so you can go to Bassmaster.com, and you can actually search what state you're from, and then you can find your state representative on the Bassmaster website. They'll have their contact information on there as far as email and phone number. You can get a hold of them, and then they kind of handle the dispersing. Like, okay, well, you're in this area, you know, here is the club that is in that area. You can go to any club you'd like and join any club. But that's the main way. We have we do a couple different things. We have our own Facebook webpage. So if somebody types in Sioux Bassmasters, they can see, hey, look, there's a bass club in Sioux Falls. A lot of the clubs do that. Another thing we do, we just put out, you know, we got to find every bass guy that we can up here, right? So we put out an advertisement on Craigslist. Oh. Just say, hey, you know, if you're a bass guy and you want to, you know, get involved with a club, here's the contact information, and that's, you know, that's really kind of what we do. But the Bassmaster.com thing is probably the most popular.
And you can join it as a boater, a non-boater. I mean, as long as there's enough boaters. I mean,
yep,
as far as that goes.
You don't have to have a boat. You don't have to have a. You don't even have to have a bass boat if you do have a boat. You can. It doesn't really matter. We had, you know, several guys start out in like 14-foot like John boats and everything, right? So even if you are a person without a boat, you can still join a club and you can get paired with someone who has a boat. And that's the cool thing about you know, the bass organization is, or some of the other organizations are the same way, where you can get paired with somebody who maybe knows the ropes really well.
Yep.
And the way I always share it with folks who are asking questions about it is, it's like for a lot of anglers coming into a club, it's like a free guided trip.
It really is.
You might get paired with somebody who is an absolute stick on this body of water and can show you exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
And I've actually contemplated about going back and being a co-angler in a lot of our state events, because I haven't had the opportunity to fish with some of the guys that are really good. Mm-hmm. So it's a unique opportunity, you know, for anybody who wants to get in. And I'm sure in any of the tournament scenes, it's the same way. Or there's there's those opportunities to get in and kind of learn the ropes really quick.
Yeah.
So
I know that I started off as a non-boater years ago down at Okoboji on the Iowa Great Lakes Bass Club.
Yep.
And like you said, I got to fish with some guys that I learned a ton from those guys. Just fishing in the back of the boat, watching to them. They were talking, and a couple. Actually, I think there's a couple guys from Sioux Falls that would come down there and fish in it. So
sure.
Yeah, definitely get out there, give those a try. Now I guess the question is, FLW bass or MLF? What do you think about like this shakeup in like there used to be the two major FLW bass, that was kind of your major fishing tournaments for bass fishing, and now with the addition of the MLF.
Yep.
We'll say as a fan watching.
As a fan watching,
yeah.
I think the most exciting is MLF. I mean, you just get to see so much more of what's going on behind the scenes, and so you see every little bit of what's going on, and you see the intensity that MLF brings because they know what the next guy in the next boat has, for weight, and so it adds a whole new level of competition, and I'm sure the emotions run a little bit wiry for a lot of those guys. It's got to be, I don't know how I would do. I've never fished an event like that, so I guess I can't speak on knowing what it would be, but from a fan standpoint of watching, I think the MLF is definitely pretty exciting. And then Bass Live can be pretty cool to watch too. I think they're really getting into being able to view more of the details. Before it seemed like it was kind of like, okay, there was a delay in there, right? Mm-hmm. So like they cut out a lot of the dead space, and then it's like, oh, let's go over to so and so, and all of a sudden he's catching a fish, right? And MLF does a little bit of that too, but I think with the bass side of things, they have Bass Live. They set up a quad screen so you can see 4 different anglers fish at the same time. I think MLF does the same thing too, but you can really see those guys now and really see what they're going through and the decisions and how they're making the decisions, when they're making the decisions, and so as a viewer, they're increasing their coverage dramatically, and I think it's good.
Yep.
I think this whole mix-up is really good. I'm sure it's probably there's been a lot of questions being asked, and this first couple of years will really tell, where the sport is going. But, from a fan standpoint, I guess watching, MLF, definiting there's a lot of excitement that happens there for me anyway.
Yeah. We've talked about this before. There's still something about that weigh-in though.
Yep.
That like not knowing and putting, like you said earlier in your experience, like, oh, he needs 8 ounces, and it's just like, ugh.
Yep.
But how about you got your fantasy team picked for this weekend?
Honestly,
not doing fantasy fishing this year?
I was tending to too much water issues this week. We've got a ton of rain in South Dakota, absolute ton of rain, and we had it last week too. So, and I just got back from Kentucky Lake. Honestly, I haven't had any time to really. I've done a little research. On who I think will, be at the top, but no fantasy fishing picks.
Who's going to win it? Who's going to win it?
I still got time to change mine.
I've been looking at Ott Defoe. I'm just thinking Ott is gonna be one of those guys that he's really just just I mean,
he is.
He's a stout angler.
Heck of a guy.
He's a super nice guy. And doggone it, he can fish. There are a few other picks. You know, I have. This is so tough because I look through the list of anglers and I'm thinking, wow. You know, there's so many. There's so much potential here. You know, it could be any one of these guys, but you know, Ott is the one that stood out. Another one was Jason Christie. That dude. I mean, he's another guy that's due. And then you might have a couple guys who, you know, they're the ones that they're kind of like, I don't know if you want to describe them as the dark horse or whatever, but you kind of know their strengths a little bit, but you're not quite sure if it'll play in. But like a guy that I've been kind of watching, Micah Frazier.
Yeah, he's kind of been flying under the radar.
Yeah.
The last few years, he's really.
Yeah, he's. You know, he could be one of those guys, but you know, and then you got your sticks, you got your KVD, you got your Swindle, you got Ike, Polinick.
Yeah.
You know, so if the smallmouth come to play, Polinick might be a pretty tough one. And then you also got your, you know, a couple other local guys. Brandon Card.
Yeah.
Is another guy that. He might come swinging.
I think that Brandon Lester could kind of surprise a few.
And yeah, you got your West Coast guy, right? You know, he was Angler of the Year last year. Is that right? No, that was
Justin Lucas.
That was Lucas. So.
Yeah, he could. Yeah, it's like you said, it's wide open.
Yeah,
there's a lot of guys like when it comes down to it, and it, you know, you got to put 3 good days together. You can't just have one or two. And
the consistency's got to be there. And it sounds like I was kind of looking at the forecast for Knoxville, and the forecast was anywhere from about that 52 to 60 degrees. So we're not going to have a ton of warming water.
No.
And the first 2 days could be partly cloudy. And I think actually tomorrow, which is the first day, is actually the warmest day. I think it's supposed to be 60, and then it's going to be gradually dropping and trickling off. Nighttime temperatures in that 32-ish area. So it's not going to, you know, it could be a crankbait deal, you know, when it's all said and done. But, you know, like I say, sometimes the smallmouth, if the smallmouth come to play, you could see some brown bags, some good brown bags wade in.
Got any sponsors that you want to give a shout out to?
Oh man,
help you get through this?
This is that's the only way I can make it. So Nitro Boats, obviously they're a big one. Mercury Marine, Power Pole, Lowrance, Dobbins Rods, Lew's Reels, Pro Patterns, Biospawn, 6 Sense, Eco Pro Tungsten, Solar Bat. Let's see. Thank you guys for all you do for me. Really appreciate it. Couldn't be where I am without you. And it's been a fun ride. I'm looking forward to 2019. I'm ready for all this ice to disappear.
Yeah, I am. Him not so much.
Yeah,
he likes the ice fishing. He likes the ice fishing part of it. So
well, you better make it quick because it's going fast.
Get your waders. You might need your waders if you go out there this weekend.
I'm looking forward to spring though too. I mean, but
no, thanks for being on the show. The best of luck this year, the coming years.
To lacrosse.
Yep.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Awesome. I mean, I just decided just now.
Yeah, awesome.
We'll cheer you on out there.
No.
No? You gonna
Are they still looking for?
I think there's a waiting list.
Is there a waiting list?
Yeah, so you can still register, and they'll put you on the waiting list, and then if a spot opens up, when I registered, they were looking for co-anglers.
Were they? That's what I would go as co-angler.
But now, I just had a buddy who tried to register, and they put him on a waiting list as a co-angler. So I don't know where they're at, but they do have some priority things that do happen for the opens, and I think they're beyond all their priority picks. I think now they're just filling the last few spots. So I think it's going to be a full field, but
yeah, they usually are.
Yep.
Yeah. Best of luck. We'll be looking for you in the future.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.